Following Manga Library Z, now Melon Books finds its way into being on the outs, if you will, with MasterCard and Visa. According to a post put out yesterday, on the 9th, they say, we are very sorry, but from December 19th, 2024, we have decided to suspend the use of Visa and MasterCard credit card payments. We apologize for any inconvenience caused to our customers. Please check the URL below for details. And so they do send you over here to the website here. This is, of course, melonbooks.com.jp. Of course, I translated it to English here using Google Translate, so there may be some problems here. But it says, thank you for using Melon Books and Fromagy Books online in store. We are very sorry to inform you that we will be suspending Visa and MasterCard payments from December 19th, 2024. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause our customers. And so they say credit card payments can be used until December 18th of 2024. That's Wednesday. And JCB, American Express, and Visa, those will be accepted. JCB and American Express will be accepted forward from the 19th going forward on Thursday. I don't know how long American Express is going to last. Now, about these stores, they are going to continue servicing the people who order up until that point. In fact, they make sure that they say right here, if you're going to order things that will be released after the 19th, they would ask that you go get a JBC credit card. Now, you might be wondering what JBC is. Now, this is a payment system that Japan offers that outsiders can get involved with. You've heard of gold cards, You've heard of gold cards. So this is a way that you can, like prepay a card and have access to a sort of a domestic Japanese processor, I guess. So you don't have to deal with the Western processors saying, no, you can't buy that because it's got that on this site. We don't like that. So that is the runaround at the moment of how to get around this thing if you want to continue interacting with these websites. Apparently, the JCB prepaid cards are completely viable. For now, at least. We'll see if somehow they find a way to screw with that. If you're interested in getting one of those, I will put the link in the description. But for now, if you want to look at it right now, please go to global.jcb/en. And that should bring you to the English extension of that website. If not, I'm sure you'll be able to navigate your way there on your own. But again, the link will be down in the description if you're curious when you read this. But we'll check it out. Now, at the top of this, you saw in the thumbnail that I said that the government was getting involved in this, okay? So right here is Taro Yamada, all right? And I believe that's the correct way. It's not the backwards way that they say it in Japan where they say their last names first. I believe his first name is Taro and his last name is Yamada. I could be wrong. He could be Yamada Taro. That sounds not like a, formal name, like a, when you say like first name, last name. So just correct me if I'm wrong down below, Japanese users, if you know what his name actually is, how it's supposed to go, but I believe it's Taro Yamada here. And if you're curious who this man is, here's his X profile, and it says, former Parliamentary Vice Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, Parliamentary Vice Minister of Reconstruction, Parliamentary Vice Minister of Digital Affairs, founder and president of a company listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, Mothers, has served as specially appointed professor at University of Tokyo, Waseda University, and Tokyo Institute of Technology. Specializes in freedom of expression, secrecy of communications, digital policy, children's policy, hay fever. Recent publications include Children's Agency, Behind the Scenes of the Turbulence of the Establishment of the Children and Families Agency, and How to Fight for Freedom of Expression. So this guy's pretty serious about, people having what they want in life, provided it's nonviolent. And so he's now involved here with what's going on. So he's wrote up a nice write-up about this. So I'm going to trust that Google Translate gets 9 out of 10 of this right, okay? Because it's too much to bounce back and forth. So here we go. On November 8th, discussions were held. This is Taro Yamada, by the way. We haven't changed. This is Taro Yamada. So now this is the guy we were just learning about. On November 8th, discussions were held with the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry and the Financial Services Agency regarding credit card regulations, censorship by payment institutions in the digital space is becoming more and more serious. On the same day, it was reported that Mellon Books mail order will no longer accept Visa and MasterCard payments. However, Visa and MasterCard can still be used in those stores again until the 18th, I think it is. The Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, which is also in charge of content strategy, should work together with its departments to understand why regulation of expression by acquirers and payment processing companies is rapidly expanding and consider ways to address the issue. You know, Japan might want to do something about that, as opposed to here in the US where we just root them on, you know, debanking anybody that gets in the way, you know, or gets out of the way and then they're a problem. If we are to further promote cashless payments, it is essential that we understand the issue and take immediate measures to address them. During the discussions held on this day, the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry and the Financial Services Agency confirmed the following facts. Okay, this is the government talking. This is not some dude sitting out in a coffee shop trying to take inventory of all the things he saw on X today. This is real government affairs that have taken notice of this stuff, all right? Just like before with Assassin's Creed Shadows, the government is forced to involve itself in fan culture because of the abuse of institutions that are even, I would say, more powerful than the government at this point. Credit cards are regulated by the installment sales law, which is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. I should write a song about this. It's so repetitive. Issuers, acquirers, and payment processing companies are required to register if they meet the criteria. They must register. Supervisory authority is narrow. On the other hand, banks supervised by a financial services agency are required to license and can set and change conditions, giving them broader supervisory authority. And what I register from this is that mostly what this means is that the issuers, acquirers, and payment processing companies, once registered, can talk about their registration. They can update their registration, if you will. If they decide that they're going to change how they're operating, their registration is allowed to be changed without it being reset, is what I infer from that. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. METI only supervises issuers on proper credit and acquirers, and payment agencies on proper information management. There have been 6 cases in the past where administrative sanctions have been imposed on these issues. The Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry's supervisory authority does not extend to international brands, which are not subject to the Installment Sales Act in the first place. There are no regulations on supervisory authority over merchant fees, payment withholding, chargebacks, and etc. Even if there is an improper handling, it is not subject to the administrative sanctions under the Installment Sales Act. Even if acquirers and payment agencies try to restrict expression by threatening to terminate contracts or withhold payments, they have no supervisory authority. The Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry does not understand why expression restrictions by acquirers and payment processing companies are rapidly expanding. Credit cards are an important infrastructure in the digital age. Despite this, the government's involvement in credit card companies is extremely limited. Of course, when the government imposes regulations, it generally restricts freedom, and it should be cautious, right? So I just want to pause there. What he's trying to say here is that while we would like it if you did not allow Visa to set these limitations on entertainment, we do not want to afford you the regulatory power to go out and make sure that we can't buy refrigerators. You know, we can't buy gas stoves. That's probably a better example. Remember when the current administration thought that would be a brilliant idea to ban gas stoves? So imagine now you give the authority to the government to say, well, hold on, Visa can't resist the sale of gas stoves. Okay? Now, this is just an example, right? And so if that's the case, then you've then infringed on the freedom of the payment processor to make the decision on what they want to be a part of. So on both ends of this, there's a loss of freedom, one way or another. It is not a win-win scenario, okay? While you may free up entertainment, you've now given the government the power to come in and regulate what a payment processor can decide is what they want to process. However, when it comes to the issue of credit cards, I believe that there needs to be strong government involvement in order to guarantee freedom of trade and expression, as well as for the sake of maintaining infrastructure and economic security. This is an important issue, so we will continue to work on it tenaciously. And this is a picture of them meeting in there, and he has a mascot that he brings with him apparently. So that's how this works. But as you can see here, this is a real government meeting. These are real people. They're sitting down and trying to have a conversation about this. And the Japanese government does not possess the ability to go out and tell Visa to knock it off. They leave most of what Visa does for its own regulations in Visa's hands. And MasterCard too, these companies that are making these decisions. And so what you end up finding as you peel back their discussions is that there is a reluctance to even begin to talk about this. Now, if I don't know if you know this or not, but anytime you go trying to limit what a bank can do or what a money institution can do, it tends to be pretty bad for your health. Yeah. And when you go try to make your own payment processor, yeah, that too tends to be pretty bad for your health. It's a strange thing that just keeps happening to people. They experience these horrible things and they stop being alive after that. After suddenly, some horrible things happen after they decided to do their own regulations on payments and stuff. But it is what it is, right? And so this is what you have to understand. The Japanese government is not going to ride to the rescue on this. The Western governments are not going to ride to the rescue on this, okay? This is not an issue that they believe rises to what they want to fight. They're more than happy to go blow up other nations. In Japan's case, they're more than happy to have an ideological warfare with North Korea and China, somewhat Russia, but they don't want to sit there and say whoa, Visa, you can't control what our Japanese, what anybody's using our payment processors for, right? What anybody's using your payment processor for. They won't sit down and have that conversation, okay? This is where you need to understand how government works globally, okay? Globally, they don't want to touch where the money comes from, okay? That's the rule. Don't touch where the money comes from. Now, here's an interesting thing that's been floated around out there in the public, is that there's a belief that these regulations are happening here. So as you can see from Automaton West, there's Japanese manga store Melon Books offers customers discount for using Amex and JCB credit cards to counter these issues with international payment processors. And if you heard that vehicle go by right now, that's someone on their way to hit the like and subscribe button right now. So feel free to follow them at top speed. However, back to this issue right here. There is a way around it. As I said, the JCB cards are available out there if you want to get involved that way. However, if given enough time, there will be a new payment processor that will arise out of this, okay? Because what's happened is that the theory that's going around that I mentioned before that car went by was that Australia's regulations on pornography may be influencing these sales for Visa and MasterCard. And so because in Japan there are manga and, entertainment properties that do imply that characters are underage in sexual situations, this violates Australia's pornography laws. And thus, that means that they have to regulate that in their country. Now, in order to avoid being brought up on charges for supporting this stuff in other countries, Visa probably just wanted to wash their hands of the whole thing. An optics situation. So they weighed the balance. Do we continue doing total business with Australia and potentially lose the Japanese market because we're limiting what they can purchase for entertainment? Or do we risk losing Australia because one day a politician will rise up and make a big deal about this and try to force out these credit card processors that are supporting media that is questionable in some cases? And so that's the reality here. Did Melon Books host any of that? I don't believe so. I don't. I get the impression that Melon Books had quite a bit of adult content, but I don't get the impression that there was stuff that was cheese pizza there. I don't get the impression at all. I didn't go through the website with a fine-tooth comb. There's a lot of listings on that website. I did not go through the many thousands there, okay? Not at all. Now, on the other end, with Manga Library Z, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that got printed, right? And so that stuff could contain stuff that violates Australia's decency laws, Australia's pornography laws. And so that, again, you've got to remember that this global economy screws everybody over in the end. It's really nice to be able to buy things across the world on Amazon. But in reality, when you get into the guts of the regulations of how it's handled, it gets really ugly really fast when somebody decides they don't want to play along, okay? And it ruins it for everybody because these corporations are now global. They do not care about any singular region. What they are trying to do is remain as faultless as possible, meaning they can't be touched. They want to be able to operate as smooth as soap anywhere in the world. So here's this Australian law that says pornography has to be very particular. And so, ta-da, they try to work that out on a global scale now. And Japan seems to be catching it the worst because, again, Japan is a different culture and they have a different attitude about presenting this stuff. I don't agree with some of the stuff that gets produced. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making a case for that kind of content. I can't list it here because it'll violate YouTube's TOS, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. I don't think it should be printed. But I don't believe that it is the job of the government to stop something that is wholly fictional. Okay? I don't like the ideas that it puts in people's heads. I don't like that it allows something like that to exist and be propagated, but it's fiction. There is no real human being harmed there. And that's as strange and uncomfortable as a lot of that stuff is. You know, there is no violence being practiced. And so Visa is outside of its limitations here, limiting that. And I'll remind you, they were probably happy to continue servicing whatever ISIS was paying for. Hey, I didn't hear anything about Visa and MasterCard suspending payments to ISIS. You'd think that they would be out there to preach that one, right? Not so much. We didn't hear anything about Iran and Russia being cut off from this stuff. Strange, isn't it? But here we go. Now we have to deal with Japan stuff because, once again, as I pointed out in the last video, a lot of Japanese entertainment leans into being, more heterosexual than not. And again, the West is at war with biological fact at the moment. So, of course, they go after Japan, who is wholeheartedly influencing the youth of the United States right now. Okay? There's no joke about that. There's no like, haha, there's none of that. That's true and honest as you and I walk the earth today. Go anywhere where books are sold, where media is sold. It is majority anime in there now. It is majority anime in there now. And again, failing of the West because we're at war with biological reality here. So who wants to read about that? Who wants to be lectured in their media and their escapism? Nobody. So they lean into the Japanese market, who is much more open about this kind of stuff and, in fact, trying to insert it into a lot of its media in order to create a population recovery. So why wouldn't they lean into that? It's one of those things, right? It's one of those things that we're going to keep seeing as we go forward with nations that step out of line with what the desired future was, right? Now we're headed to a new future with a bunch of people who have a lot of power kicking and screaming as they're drugged toward it. And they absolutely hate that fact. So you might be asking yourself, well, what are we supposed to do about all that? And Madam Savvy asks a very good question here. She asks that. She says, how can we help? America's to blame for half of the censorship in Japan. It's always Visa and MasterCard together. They are hurting creatives worldwide. And she's absolutely right there. So what we do is that you write your senator or you start electing people that want to address this censorship issue at the corporate level. Sure, it's nice and dandy to make sure that the government's not setting this tone, but we need to make sure that corporations aren't able to do this either. And it needs to be very careful because, as I said before, and as Mr. Yamada said, you need to make sure that you're not authorizing the government to force corporations into doing things they otherwise would not be doing with the protections of the individuals within the company. Now, when you go applying that to things like pornography, it's a little different. As I said, there's no violence being practiced in the stuff that may violate Australia's laws, pornography laws. There's no violence being practiced there. Where this is Visa and MasterCard getting cold feet, our government needs to step in and set very clear guidelines, and then this can be fixed in Japan. okay? But for now, they're freewheeling, dealing with Australia, perhaps dealing with Australia's thing. That's a theory. It's not confirmed. But it's a theory that they're freewheeling, trying to deal with Australia's laws that forbade a lot of the stuff that you might have found in Manga Library Z. I can't say the same for Melon Books. I don't know for sure. But there again, there's always that sneaking little thing that the West does where, like, cartoons are for children, comics are for children. You can't depict anything but fluffy rainbows and ponies that believe friendship is magic in them. You know, and then they'll turn around and drool all over the next MCU thing where guts and gore are splattered to the walls and ceiling. But whatever, right? Doesn't matter so long as it's our guys doing it, but it's when those other people over there, those less than human people that aren't us doing it, then we need to make sure it stops, because it's bad then. Whatever, man. I don't know. You'll have to let me know how you feel down in the comments, and until the next one, guys, good luck out there.